Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for waiting. So, what does your next LMS look like? The aim of this presentation is really to give you some tips and tools for navigating the LMS market. It's a huge market. You can have a look around the floor today. There are hundreds of vendors out there, and it's a bit mind-boggling really for first-time buyers or for people looking to replace a system. So hopefully we'll give you a bit of insight into the market and to how to go about selecting your next LMS. I'm going to introduce you to a product first. I could have chosen anything, but I've chosen an example LMS called Plato, and this is a system that's split into three main areas, like any LMS really. You've got your learner administration area, so doing your student and tutor assignment and course enrollment and all that kind of thing. Your communication tools such as message boards, email, collaboration, and course activities. So thinking around sort of courseware delivery, grade books, online testing, adaptive learning paths based on pre-assessment material, things like that, and gamification, should I dare say the word, so sort of games-based learning. So this is a system called Plato. There's a problem with it though. It's 50 years old. And I really use that just as an illustration that not an awful lot has changed in the LMS market over the decades. Some of that functionality was built in the 70s, so it's evolved over a number of decades, and especially the stuff around communication. So it was the early versions of email and discussion forums. This was the first place that they were built in Plato in the States, and this was used quite widely around the world by academic institutions. But they did try and commercialise it in the 70s and 80s, which failed abysmally, which is probably why not many people have heard of it. I hadn't heard of it until a few weeks ago. And yeah, 1 hour of courseware cost $300,000, and that's without inflation. So it flopped really commercially, but really just as an indication of not much has changed feature-wise in the LMS market, which is kind of disappointing. There's been lots of tinkering around the edges, and the technology has changed. So that was an old client-server system, and now obviously everything's internet-based and cloud-based. But what has changed is the market, and this is kind of where it gets interesting and relevant to this presentation. So the LMS market is huge. We've got there's research out there at the moment that says over 500 vendors, which is phenomenal. And the reason for that is because the barriers to entry are so low. Really, anyone can build an LMS. You've got all of your internet technologies and then cloud technologies that keep the costs of infrastructure down. You've got open source code libraries and frameworks that keep the development costs down. So people are building LMSs for a few $100,000 or a few £100,000 now. Anyone can do it, anyone does do it. And what we've not really seen in the market, which people have been talking about for a long time, is consolidation. There's a lot of merger and acquisition activity and stuff, but for every big merger, countless new systems are spawning. So we've got to this point where there's 500 plus systems, and where do you start if you're looking for a new one? So the way that the vendors have this problem as well, that they're obviously vying for your business, and so they have to work out how to differentiate. And there's been two main strategies really. One is to diversify. So that's people like your big players like SumTotal and Oracle and those lot who are really moving into new markets. So where people might have worked with an LMS in the past, they're going into HR and talent management and so on. And other tools are choosing to specialise. So they'll pick one feature set or one thing in particular and do it really, really well, but not try and do everything else. So the ones that are diversifying, which is the big players that everyone's heard of, and a lot of the people around the floor today, they're adding new features constantly. They're moving into HR, into social networking, obviously within a learning context, and collaboration tools and the like. A lot of them are going out and acquiring smaller products to kind of build in those new features, if not building them from scratch. If you read the reports from the likes of eLearning Guild and Bursin and those types of research analysts, one of the things you see quite commonly is that a lot of these tools spread themselves quite thinly, and that customer satisfaction has gone down, and often seeing stats around things like 60% of LMS buyers are considering changing their LMS in the next couple of years and things like that. So customer satisfaction is not great. I think that's potentially a problem with that kind of diversification. So if we look at some examples of where people have specialised, this is where it gets quite interesting. So you've got literally hundreds of these products out there. They're all built with new sort of web standards. They look very modern, very, very well designed systems. So you've got cloud systems, proper sort of instant setup, metered usage, all that kind of thing. So cloud LMS. You've got adaptive systems that Newton, there's a particularly good system called Newton that Pearson are quite closely involved in. Nothing to do with us. So it's not a plug, but just to sort of illustrate some of these, you've got MOOC systems, so these huge online, free online platforms. So Google have just got into that market with their course builder tool. And a lot of systems that are specialising in particular verticals. So you'll have LMSs that are specialising in oil industry or pharmaceuticals or health and safety, that kind of thing, and just choose that specific vertical. And then the rest, you can read the rest, test prep and social learning tools like Curator are over here on our right, and open educational resources. So that's where your sort of edX and Coursera that are quite sort of buzzy at the moment. So lots and lots of specialisation. But the nice thing with these platforms is that they look the work. They really look the part. And some of those older systems that we looked at that are diversifying are quite clunky to use. And this is one of the ways that these systems differentiate themselves, apart from specialising on features, is having really good usable user interfaces. And this kind of illustrates where the marketplace is at, really. This is quite an old model now, this sort of long tail model, 10 years old or so, I think, but just to illustrate that in this head area you've got these hugely popular systems. So that's where your sort of Blackboards and your Moodles and SumTotals and those sorts of people are. Hugely popular systems, 50 million plus users or so, each, and those are operating in that green area. And then you've got this long tail of literally hundreds and hundreds of systems with much smaller user bases, but very, very specialist. And so that's the big dilemma really for a buyer is where do you go and which part of the market do you look at? Do you take some of the big ones and look at a few specialised ones? That's one thing that we offer. So we're not tied to any particular. We have some partnerships with various tools, but we can take a much more independent view. We're not tied into one particular tool set. So we often do that kind of consulting-led engagement on sort of VLE or LMS selection and look at the whole market, depending on what your requirements are. But this is to illustrate that where a lot of our customers are looking, and if you're looking at that more diversified side, a lot of those tools will cover all of these areas. But equally, there are dozens of tools that specialise in each of these kind of boxes. What I wanted to talk about next is that you can go down that specialised route, but you don't have to have your information and your data in silos. So they can all be connected together, and they do that through APIs. And I won't get too technical at this point, but an API is basically, you can think of it as glue for software. So it allows programmers of one tool to sort of dig into the code base or to the database rather of another tool without doing too much sort of code customization. So data's being exposed from one system to the other. And that's done through various standards. So there's web services standards that most of the big LMSs support. And then standards you'll all be familiar with, I'm sure, like SCORM, which is a content development standard, but means that a piece of content developed to that standard will work in any LMS, or should do, and it uses the SCORM API to do that. And Tin Can is a new one that does a similar thing. It's about working with lots of different systems, and we'll come on to that. But what APIs allow you to do is connect all of these products together. So any of these tools, we've got these sort of white lines that indicate how the data can be transferred between each of these systems. Those are all going into and out of the LMS, but obviously there's no reason why CMS and HR or HR, performance, talent management, those can all be exchanging information. So the lines can potentially go in any direction between any tool, and that's all done through APIs. So there's standard ways of doing this kind of thing. So that's the sort of background to how to, what the choices are really between your differentiate, your diversified and your specialist products and how you can connect them together with APIs. What I'm going to show you next is just some examples of what APIs actually allow us to do, just so you can see something a bit more tangible. So I've got 5 very sort of quick fire presentations or sort of screenshot based presentations of various systems to go through. So the first one, I'm not going to try and get online and do any sort of live links today, so I will say if anybody wants to see these afterwards, come and visit us on the stands just behind us here, 56, and we can sort of talk you through these in more depth or arrange other times to do so. But for Deutsche Bank, this is basically sort of a capability management system that allows people to view the sort of competencies and capabilities that are required for each of the roles in the business or in their part of the business, and really build development paths. So if they see, right, this is my current role, that's the future role I want to do, what do I need to do to get to it, so they can build a sort of a personalised path. So I'll just talk you through a few of those screens. That's the home page when you log in, so it knows I'm a vendor manager. I can see my activity list, which is my upcoming activities and stuff that I've bookmarked. But if I go into the role framework, you'll see along the top there's a few sort of navigational tabs, and the role framework is the first one. And this basically allows the user to navigate all of the roles in their part of the business. So you've got levels of seniority down the left-hand side and the various professions along the top. So this matrix is sort of displaying each of the roles within that within that matrix, and you can then click on those. So if we pick one, pick on business analyst, specialist, and that gives you all of the competency and proficiency levels that you need to perform at to do that role. And if you choose to do so, which I have here, you can display your own roles competencies so that you can view that sort of comparison between the two roles and kind of see what's a good match for you. So if we move on to the actual development activities for that role, what we can do now is view all of the development activities for that business analyst specialist role and actually add those to my activity stream. So those little plus icons you can see under each activity, if I click those, that then adds it to my sort of learning stream on the home page, where I can come back and get to all of these items easily. The next sort of way of browsing through the site is through the competency model. So you don't have to go through the roles area. You can access it through competencies as well. So in this screen, we can see all of the competencies in my part of the business, organised under business and technical competencies. And if I click on one of those, if I choose to show the ones for my role, those are all highlighted in purple with the proficiency levels, and then click on those to actually see the detail. So I can see related competencies in the blocks along the bottom to navigate to those. But I can see, right, P3 for proficiency level 3 for business strategy has these various competencies. And again, you've got that development activities tab there, so I can browse to all the development activities for proficiency level 3, 4, 5, etc., whatever I need to get to. And all of that is done through APIs. We don't actually hold the sort of single point of truth, as it were, that sort of main data store in this system. It's actually pulling in all of the roles and competencies are coming in from an HR platform, all of the proficiency levels, all that kind of stuff. There's sort of two separate silos where the data's pulled from in various parts of their HR sort of ecosystem, really, that's evolved over the years. What they didn't want to do was replicate all of that in one place, so we've used APIs, web service APIs, to pull all that data in, and that gets updated on a nightly basis, and it knows who, once the user's logged in, it knows who they are and obviously displays the right role for them as well. So web service APIs allow us a facilitator for that kind of model. Next one I want to show you is a site we built for Cisco, which is for their sales, one of their sales training portals, and it's called MyDNA. And what you have here is a portal that splits into the 5 stages of the sales cycle, which you can see along the top. And they wanted something very visual, so this, what they'd done was gone out to the market and tried to see, well, what's the right product for me, and didn't find anything that they liked, just because their way of working and the way they like their user interfaces to be designed is a much more visual experience. So we just built something from scratch for them. So what you've got, according to those 5 stages of the sales cycle, is all of your learning activities in 5 separate columns. And the newer stuff automatically drifts to the top. So where you see it sort of condensed at the bottom, towards the bottom, that's because that's all old material. The newer stuff automatically gets given priority. And the thicker the line, the larger the piece of learning. So if I, for example, click on that top one under proposals, that's a 2-day course. If I click on one of the narrower lines under qualification, that's just a 5-minute video nugget. So all of this sort of different type of material is in the system. So again, this knows what job role I have as well. So this is all material that's relevant to me as an employee in my job. You'll see down the bottom we've got a category, 4 different categories. So if I click on one of those categories, I can automatically just filter everything out that's not related to that, and just see the stuff that's related to can't quite read it here. Baseline sales content, sorry. So, and similarly, you've got the various learning types as well. So if I were to click on the purple highlighted one there, which is e-learning, then I can just see which are the e-learning modules. And similarly, you've got things like sort of face-to-face sessions, webinars, all your different sort of learning interaction types in there. So you can just quickly and easily filter stuff. So that's a sort of brief overview of another option, really, and in that sense, that the main driver for that was building something more visual, which they couldn't find out in the LMS market. But you know, because the technology is so cheap to do this stuff, that you've got the open source code that you can build these things on top of, and cheap cloud infrastructure, like I mentioned earlier. It's pretty cost effective to do this stuff from scratch if you need to. In this example, we didn't actually use web services, so this is not pulling in data from other systems, but there's absolutely no reason why it couldn't do. So things like doing single sign-on with people's networks, Active Directory, that kind of stuff, pulling in user profile data automatically, all perfectly feasible. What it does do, though, is link to content all over the place, but it doesn't require authentication as part of that, so we haven't had to build that in. So next we have a system that we've actually just recently partnered with these, and the next two are the same actually. So the Chabot Cloud, who are demoing on our stand today, and Curator, who are next to us. So two systems that we're actually resellers of, but the reason we've chosen these is that they offer something quite unique that we haven't found elsewhere. So the Chabot is something that we do a lot of LMS work, but we saw that there was a gap in the sort of particularly in the sort of launch and track end of the market, the lower end aimed at sort of SME type businesses, and what they need is really sort of quick, simple setup. And the big advantage for us of this system is that we can get our customers in here instantly. So it's a proper cloud-based system. You've got instant sign-up. You have 5 free users, and then you just ramp up as you need to. So it's really easy to get a trial system for your individual organisation, and then you can just add users and ramp that up and down as you need. So it's sort of proper, got that nice sort of metered usage element to it with instant setup. So, and literally you can go online and set this up in a matter of seconds and get full access to all of the features. So it's fantastic for us from that point of view for doing quick turnaround systems, but it's also very visual. So you can see here, you've got nice reporting tools and just a really, really nice interface, which we found a lot of LMSs lack. So that was one of the big appealing things to us for the Chabot. That's their course menu page. Often in an LMS you just see a list of links, just a list of text links. So again, it's much more visual. You roll over any of those courses and it gives you your progress information in a little sort of nice transition. So it rolls up and tells you your progress and stuff like that. So it's just a really, really nicely designed system, and that's one of the big differentiators from a lot of these new platforms. It's not the only nicely designed LMS. There's quite a bit to choose from at this part of the market, but it's a very good example. On the web services front, which is crucial, one of the things we liked about the Chabot is it has a really open attitude to giving people access to their API. And a lot of vendors, you'll find, you have to dig around for this kind of information. And from our point of view, as going through this LMS selection process, this stuff's absolutely crucial. You can't sort of hide this stuff behind a walled garden and only let your customers access it. Part of the selection process should be that if a LMS doesn't have a good, robust API with access to loads of different functions, then it's almost just a de rigueur thing as far as I'm concerned, that as part of LMS selection, if they don't have a public, well-documented API, we wouldn't even consider them. So that was played very well in Chabot's favour as well. So the next one, last but one, is Curator, which are the guys over here. So we're a partner with them as well, and they offer something very different, both in terms of it's a very specialised system around the idea of social learning, user-generated content, and games-based learning, and does something quite unique. And they also have a really, really nice user interface, which you can see here. So this is actually the sort of you're in your course essentially now. We're on level 3 of a course, and these are your resources. So again, it's just moving away from that sort of link by link kind of list of resource items. If I roll over one of those items, you get the title, click on it to get all the information about it. I can then launch it, or I can view similarly tagged objects. I can share it through email or Twitter or whatever. If I actually click on the object to launch it, in this case it's a video, so it's pulling something down off YouTube, but the social element kicks in then, and you can have that discussion around that particular piece of that particular item of learning, and that sort of bar can be, if you click hide comments, that just docks it to the edge of the browser, so you can just have that available as you need it. The gamification side of it is really interesting. So some LMSs can be kind of customized to do this kind of thing. The nice thing about Curator is it does it out the box and has the concept of leveling up. So you complete your various course materials. There will be some kind of gateway points, and it might be that you have to do an assessment in the traditional sort of learning model, but it could also be something like you have to contribute. It's a social learning system, so the gateway could be that you have to contribute a number of items through the forums or upload a piece of your own content. So it kind of fosters that user-generated content idea. And once you've reached that gateway and past that, then you get into the next level. So it has that sort of gaming idea, and you get points for doing different things and stuff. So again, it's just another example really of a system that's specialised in on a particular part of the market. Isn't trying to do everything that a lot of the competitors are, but just focuses on a few things and does them really, really well. And there's APIs that are built into that allow you to hook into external content if you need to authenticate to do that, and pull in users and do single sign-on with the organisation's network and stuff like that. So. The last thing I wanted to show you was actually a proof of concept for us for a learning record store, and you probably see a lot about TinCan API over the next couple of days, and a lot of the content publishers are now pushing out there. People who traditionally have done SCORM-based e-learning modules are starting to push TinCan API statements out of their e-learning now, and most of the big vendors are starting to do that. So you can the learning record store side of it, which is the kind of the portal for tracking all of this information, all of these sort of much more minuscule data elements that you can push out from a piece of e-learning. Learning record stores are much less evolved, so it's mostly at proof of concept level for most vendors. There's one system called Saltbox or Wax LRS by a company called Saltbox, which is I think the most mature, but I think even that's not quite production ready as far as I understand. But what we're looking at with the Learning Record Store is pulling in TinCan API statements into one place. And if I just show you an example of how the reporting would look for that, which kind of moves into learning analytics, not a full-blown analytics portal at this stage, but what we're doing is this is an example we've built for a retail customer, I should say, so it's quite sales focused. So we've built some native apps for this customer. They want to track quite detailed interactions from that app. So, what pages have I completed, how long have I spent in it, and we'll see the learner view of this in a moment. But at this point, what they're doing is tracking the course completion versus sales revenue. So they can go into either nationwide or regional or a store level and see whether that course completion, which will obviously rise over time, is matching, is having an impact on the sales data. So from the personal point of view, for a learner, we've got this idea of a learning locker. And in TinCan sort of terminology, there's a term floating around called personal data lockers. So you can potentially pull in statements from multiple systems into one place for the learner. And so what we've got here are some examples of different types of statements that have been pulled in. So we've got stuff that's coming from the LMS or from the app in this case, but could quite happily be a learning management system that's sending it as well. So that's your course completion stuff, and that would be like, okay, I finished a course, or I finished a certain topic in a course, scored X in an assessment, but also sort of things like face-to-face training. So I've attended or booked on a seminar, attended a seminar, done some CPD, all that kind of stuff. So as long as the target platforms that are tracking that material can push it out as tin can statements, we can pull that into what we call this learning locker. What we've done that's because this is in a retail environment, what we've worked into here is pulling in stats from their CRM system, their sales database. So you can also say, right, Joe has done 17 grand's worth of sales in December, or sold 10 store cards, that kind of thing. So if you've got that performance data as well as the learning data, then you can start to do those kinds of correlations, which is what we're working towards with this. So this is a view of if the learner has clicked on course 1, they can actually go down and see quite a granular level of detail about that course, so their completion, how many times they visited it in total time, and then a sort of breakdown by section and topic of how long they spent in each one, how many pages they viewed. And importantly, because it's in this case for this retail customer, it's mobile-based learning, whether they viewed it on their iPhone or Android or tablet or whatever, and it's multi-device learning, so you can track that through the portal, who accessed from what, and then start to pull out some data about sort of what the most popular device is for different types of learning interactions and stuff like that. So it has a lot of sort of potential, I think, that of pulling out different kinds of data. From a manager's point of view, what we've got is the idea of having a kind of a dashboard really for the manager, so they can go in and see at a regional level. I'm logged in here as a Southeast manager, for example. I can see, right, for my various departments in the business, what level of competency attainment do they have against their core competencies, and for the formal training interventions, courses 1 to 4, just as sort of dummy data here, what's the overall coverage of that course. And then you can click down into Southeast, so see store by store breakdown of course coverage. Click on Brighton and see the various employees for that store and see their coverage. If I were to click on Jim, we go back to that same view that we saw a minute ago, so the manager has access to all of that as well. But where this does kind of get interesting, that's fairly standard reporting really, drilling down through your organisation hierarchy. Where it gets interesting from the sort of the tin can point of view is pulling in data from other systems and being able to correlate that and draw out trends and stuff. So that's where we've got this sales report. So this is very much proof of concept work for us at the moment. So we're investing internally in building a proof of concept learning record store. So that's sort of a given from our point of view. But we've also got a couple of customers. This retail customer, we're in quite late stages of sort of getting sign off on implementing that particular vision of pushing this out into the retail environment. And another government customer. So one of the reasons I wanted to show that today was to really show you what we're doing with tin can and how that can look, just to hopefully trigger a few ideas in your heads. And if you think that's something that could apply in your organisation, by all means come and speak to us. And what we're doing is building out that record store in a reusable manner, so that can be applied to any customer. So in summary, I think the main thing I'm trying to get across today really is you don't have to have one system to rule them all, and we often see requests for proposals from customers that want to get a new LMS and do all these nice bells and whistles and things and cover all different parts of their organisation. It doesn't have to be that way. There's a lot of weaknesses in that model, as we saw, and if you go and look out at the research, you can see that for yourselves in sort of customer satisfaction and stuff. And with a lot of that acquisition activity, especially I'd take Blackboard as an example, that as a system that has really widened the net and tried to do lots of things and pulled in through merger and acquisition activity other products that it's then discontinued. So there's weaknesses to that model. We've gone more down the specialist route. So we do Moodle work, and that's kind of our bread and butter, and that's a good wide-ranging system. But we're increasingly doing a lot more of this specialist work, and that's where the likes of Curator and Docebo come in, and there's a lot more of those kind of tool sets out there. So it's well worth a look. The key message is you can connect all these things together. So if you go down that route, they don't have to be separate silos. You don't have to have duplicated data. They can all hook into one sort of single point of truth for managing user data and reporting and all that kind of thing. So yeah, if anybody wants to talk any further about these things, catch me afterwards. I'm on the stands just behind this, the Epic stand on 56. Thank you very much.